Have you ever wondered if there is a force inside you that watches every one of your steps? A force that remembers every one of your mistakes? A force that refuses to let you forget who you were, even when you are trying to become someone new? If these words made your heart stir, even slightly, stay with me until the very end, because what I am about to reveal touches the invisible spaces inside all of us. There is a story, ancient and luminous, written in the sky through Taurus, a story that is rarely spoken aloud. It is the story of the silent judge that lives within this fixed earth sign, a presence that does not shout but weighs heavily, a presence that punishes every misstep not out of cruelty but out of fear, out of the profound desire to keep you safe, even if safety becomes a cage. Tonight, or whatever moment you are watching this, I want you to imagine a door made not of wood or iron but of memory, desire, and untold longing. Behind this door lives the archetype we call the Taurus Shadow, the one many describe as the unforgiving force, the one who holds you still when your soul begs for movement. But what if this force is not here to harm you? What if it is here to guide you? What if the very energy you have feared is the same energy that has been waiting for you to finally understand it? As we begin this journey, I want you to feel your body grounding. Feel the weight of your presence. Feel the truth that lives inside your chest, the truth you rarely speak but always carry. Taurus energy is the keeper of value, the guardian of what is precious, the defender of what you love, yet sometimes the jailer of your own evolution. When this energy becomes distorted, it takes the shape of that relentless inner demon, the one who whispers that one mistake means you have failed entirely, the one who convinces you that once you lose something, you lose a part of who you are. But tonight, we step into a different kind of understanding, a spiritual understanding, a psychological understanding, a cosmic understanding. This demon is not the enemy. It is the mirror. It is the reminder. It is the shadow that forms when your light has been shining in one direction for too long. And when you learn to face it, truly face it, you will discover something that transforms your entire journey. Before we go deeper, breathe with me. Breathe in the possibility that everything you learned about your worth may be rewritten. Breathe in the awareness that every fear that ever held you still might have been preparing you for the moment you would finally rise. Breathe in the truth that you have always been capable of movement, even when the world around you demanded stillness. And now, allow yourself to step fully into this exploration, because understanding the Taurus demon is not just about astrology. It is about understanding why you hold things so tightly, why you relive certain memories, why you punish yourself long after the world has forgiven you, why you cling to the familiar even when it no longer nourishes your spirit. This knowledge is not here to judge you. It is here to free you. So, let us open the door together. Let us walk into the realm where desire becomes destiny, where fear becomes wisdom, where shadow becomes strength. Let us uncover what most people never dare to confront. The Taurus demon does not rule your life. You do. And tonight, you begin to remember that. If these words touched you already, leave a comment with the affirmation, "I recognize my inner truth." There is something almost sacred about secrets that choose to remain hidden. They do not shout to be heard. They wait for the right moment, the right heart, the right readiness. And the Taurus Shadow is exactly that kind of secret. It is an ancient presence carved into the fixed earth of this sign, a presence born from silence and endurance, shaped by the instinct to survive and to protect. When we speak about Taurus, we usually speak about warmth, comfort, loyalty, sensuality, and grounded beauty. But beneath those qualities lies a realm most people never explore, a realm that holds both power and fear, a realm where the shadow silently rules. When Taurus energy becomes distorted, it does not explode. It implodes. It folds inward. into the body, into the memory, into the places no one else can see. And within this implosion, the shadow grows. Some call it the Taurus demon, but in truth, it is not a creature made of chaos. It is a force of weight, a force of pressure, a force that refuses to move, even when movement is the only path to freedom. It guards stability with such intensity that it sometimes forgets that life itself is change. And this is where the mystery begins, because Taurus is not just the comfort seeker. It is the keeper of desire, the holder of memory, the one who clings because it fears the void that might follow letting go. When this shadow awakens, it expresses itself through quiet punishment, a heavy kind of self-judgment, a replaying of past mistakes, as if they were scenes from a story that cannot be rewritten. The Taurus shadow is not loud or violent. It is subtle. It is the whisper that says you should have known better. The whisper that says you do not get another chance. The whisper that says what you lost will never return. And these whispers shape decisions, relationships, and paths more than most people ever realize. They shape the fear of change. They shape the attachment to comfort. They shape the resistance to risk. And for those touched deeply by Taurus energy, this shadow becomes an invisible companion that affects everything. To understand where this force comes from, we have to go back to the beginning. Not the beginning of your life, but the beginning of the cosmic story. Each sign in the zodiac carries an imprint, a purpose, a spiritual lesson. Taurus holds the lesson of worth. It carries the responsibility of grounding the human soul into the physical world. Taurus teaches us how to build, how to sustain, how to create stability in a world that is constantly shifting. But this gift comes with a cost, because anything that is fixed, anything that does not bend, eventually risks breaking under the weight of its own insistence. Ancient traditions describe Taurus as the embodiment of earth without movement. In Vedic understanding, the quality of Taurus is called sthira, which means steady, unmoving, enduring. In modern psychological astrology, this same quality shows up as consistency, loyalty, and persistence. These traits are beautiful and deeply needed, but they also carry a shadow side. When steadiness becomes fear, when loyalty becomes stagnation, when persistence becomes self-betrayal. The Taurus demon is born from this imbalance, from this ancient tension between the need to hold on and the soul's desire to evolve. In evolutionary astrology, Taurus carries karmic themes related to value, possession, self-expression, and the ability to trust that abundance will return. This means that many souls with strong Taurus influence come into this life with unresolved fears: fear of losing what they love, fear of poverty, fear of emotional instability, fear of change. These fears manifest as internal guardians, forces that believe they are protecting but are actually limiting. And when these fears go unchecked, they become the punishing presence, the one that demands perfection, the one that clings to the familiar, the one that punishes every perceived mistake with harsh self-judgment. The origin of this shadow is not the desire to harm. It is the desire to preserve. It is the instinct to hold the world still long enough to feel safe. But in a universe defined by movement, stillness can become a prison, and that is how the Taurus archetypal demon takes form. It is the jailer that does not realize it is keeping the door locked. It is the protector who has forgotten that growth sometimes requires letting go. It is the guardian who has not yet learned that worth is not found in what you keep, but in who you become. Desire is sacred. Desire is the pulse of life, the reason we reach, the reason we grow. For Taurus, desire is especially powerful because it is rooted in the physical world. Taurus desires comfort, touch, beauty, stability, sensuality, connection, and emotional safety. There is nothing superficial about this. Desire for Taurus is a spiritual experience, an expression of longing for peace in a world that often feels unpredictable. But desire, when held too tightly, begins to demand a price. The Taurus shadow punishes through the very thing Taurus cherishes most. It punishes through desire by turning it into attachment, by turning love into fear of loss, by turning comfort into fear of change, by turning stability into resistance. What begins as a longing for safety becomes a reluctance to move, and what begins as devotion becomes an inability to release. The Taurus demon watches each mistake through the lens of permanence. One wrong decision means everything is ruined. One lost opportunity means it will never come again. One betrayal means love can never be trusted. These beliefs weigh heavily on the heart. This internal punishment shows up in ways that often go unnoticed. It shows up in the habit of replaying conversations long after they are over. It shows up in the tendency to stay in situations that no longer nurture the soul because leaving feels like failure. It shows up in the relationship with the body, especially the throat, the neck, the shoulders, where emotional tension is stored when truth is not spoken. It shows up in the quiet moments of self-doubt when Taurus energy convinces itself that worth must be earned, that value must be proved, that mistakes are permanent marks on the soul. The price of desire becomes even heavier when Taurus forgets its own light, when it forgets that value does not come from what is held, but from what is felt. When it forgets that abundance is not a possession, but a state of being. When it forgets that losing something can open the door to something greater. The Taurus demon punishes not because you made mistakes, but because you forgot your worth after making them. And that is the true tragedy of this shadow, because Taurus is meant to be the embodiment of self-worth, not self-punishment. There is a reason the Taurus shadow feels so strong, so heavy, so unmovable. It is not a random emotional pattern. It is embedded in the very structure of the sign itself. Taurus belongs to the group known as the fixed signs, the ones that prefer consistency, continuity, predictability, and steadiness. This energy creates incredible strength. It creates loyalty, devotion, and a sense of home that few other signs can offer. But it also creates an inner weight, a spiritual gravity that resists change with every cell of its being. When this gravity becomes too dominant, the shadow emerges with full force. Taurus rules what is called the second house in Western astrology, the house connected to personal resources, values, possessions, voice, and self-worth. This is an extremely sensitive territory because it governs how you view yourself in the world, your confidence, your sense of value, your ability to receive. When this house is wounded, the Taurus shadow awakens. This shadow settles into the body, especially the throat and neck, where unspoken truths gather like storms waiting for release. It settles in the stomach, where fear tightens its grip. It settles in the chest, where the heart holds on to memories that should have been released long ago. The power of this shadow lies in its silence. Taurus does not scream when it suffers. It does not fall apart loudly. Instead, it tightens, it contracts. It becomes still in ways that others rarely notice. This stillness creates the illusion that everything is fine, when in reality, the internal voice is punishing every mistake with a kind of emotional permanence that becomes difficult to escape. The intensity of this shadow is not because Taurus is weak. It is because Taurus feels deeply but expresses slowly. And what is felt but not expressed begins to turn inward, shaping beliefs and fears that are hard to undo. If there is one fear that defines the Taurus shadow, it is the fear of change. Change represents uncertainty. Uncertainty threatens stability, and stability is the foundation of Taurus energy. For this reason, the shadow uses fear as a protective shield. It whispers that staying where you are is safer. It whispers that risk is failure waiting to happen. It whispers that the familiar, even when painful, is better than the unknown. These whispers do not come from malice. They come from an ancient instinct to survive. But here is the irony. The same fear that tries to protect you becomes the greatest source of limitation. The Taurus Shadow convinces you to remain in relationships that no longer nourish you, simply because leaving feels like too much loss. It convinces you to stay in routines that drain your spirit, because the unknown feels too overwhelming. It convinces you to suppress your truth, because speaking it could disrupt the harmony you have worked so hard to create. The fear of change becomes a spiritual cage, a place where growth struggles to breathe. This fear grows stronger because Taurus often associates identity with the things it builds and maintains. This includes love, career, environment, and emotional patterns. When these structures are threatened, the shadow reacts as if the foundation of the soul is shaking. This reaction is powerful because Taurus lives through sensation. It feels everything in the body. Change feels like being uprooted. Loss feels like the earth collapsing. New beginnings feel like stepping onto ground that has not yet solidified. The fear becomes a guardian, but also a barrier. The Taurus Shadow uses this fear as its weapon, holding you still when your spirit is ready to move. It tells you that you must cling to what you know, even when what you know is hurting you. It tells you that you cannot begin again. It tells you that once something is gone, it will never be replaced. These beliefs are illusions created by fear. Illusions that feel real because Taurus energy experiences the world through physical and emotional depth. But illusions remain illusions, no matter how convincing they appear. Every sign carries wounds, but the wounds of Taurus are quiet, private, and deeply internal. They are not dramatic. They are not chaotic. They are subtle wounds, the kind that form slowly across years of emotional patterns. These wounds revolve around worthiness. Taurus often struggles with the belief that they must earn love, that they must hold things together, that they must be the stable one, that they must not make mistakes. This pressure becomes a silent burden, an invisible weight they carry without asking for help. The first wound is the fear of not being enough. Taurus often believes that worth is something that must be proven. This creates a pattern of perfectionism, a tendency to judge oneself harshly, a reluctance to trust in their own value. The second wound is the fear of losing what they love. This fear is so strong that it leads to holding on long after the soul is ready to release. The third wound is the fear of starting over. Taurus carries an emotional memory that makes beginning again feel like failure rather than rebirth. This creates resistance that can keep them stuck in chapters that have already ended. These wounds are not weaknesses. They are signs of how deeply Taurus feels. They show the depth of devotion, the depth of love, the depth of personal responsibility that Taurus takes on. But when these wounds go unaddressed, they feed the shadow. They make every mistake feel unforgivable. They make every loss feel permanent. They make every change feel like danger. Taurus becomes trapped by its own loyalty, its own desire for peace, its own longing for stability. These wounds appear not only in relationships, but also in the relationship with the self. They affect how Taurus views their body, their voice, their worth, and their place in the world. The shadow feeds these wounds by convincing Taurus that value must be earned and that failure is a reflection of identity. But these beliefs are distortions. They are the result of fear, not truth. And recognizing these wounds is the first step toward healing the shadow that has lived silently for so long. When we explore the Taurus shadow, it is not enough to call it a single force. It expresses itself through forms, through emotional shapes, through archetypes that reveal the many ways this internal demon lives within a person. Think of these archetypes as mirrors that reflect how Taurus protects and how Taurus punishes, how Taurus loves and how Taurus fears. Each archetype carries a message, a gift, and a lesson hidden beneath the surface. And the moment you recognize your own reflection in one of them, the shadow begins to lose its hold. The first archetype is the stone tower. Imagine a tower standing alone in the middle of a vast landscape. It is strong, unshakable, and built to endure any storm. But step closer, and you notice that it is also empty. This archetype reflects the Taurus tendency to appear unbreakable, to hold everything in, to resist vulnerability in order to avoid disappointment. Yet inside the walls, loneliness grows. The stone tower teaches that strength without openness becomes isolation, and that true stability comes from connection rather than emotional fortification. The second archetype is the silent judge. This is the inner voice that evaluates every decision, every action, every flaw with unforgiving precision. It is the voice that demands perfection, the voice that remembers every error made long ago, the voice that holds you accountable in ways no one else ever would. The silent judge is not cruel by nature. It is terrified of repeating past pain, but in trying to protect you, it becomes your harshest critic. This archetype teaches the necessity of compassion toward oneself, and the truth that forgiveness is not weakness but liberation. The third archetype is the possessor. This one holds on tightly, sometimes too tightly. It clings to relationships, routines, beliefs, memories, and even identities, not because of greed, but because letting go feels like loss of self. The possessor confuses safety with possession and stability with control. It teaches the painful but essential lesson that release is not the same as abandonment, and that holding on to what is no longer aligned blocks the arrival of what is meant to nourish your soul. The fourth archetype is the keeper of scars. This archetype carries emotional memories like sacred relics. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every disappointment is stored in the body and remembered vividly. The keeper of scars believes that remembering pain will prevent future harm, but in reality, it often recreates the same patterns. This archetype teaches that healing does not come from remembering the wound forever, but from allowing the wound to transform into wisdom. Now let us shift the perspective, because the Taurus shadow is not here to break you. It is here to teach you. Every shadow has a spiritual function, a purpose that reveals itself only when you are brave enough to look deeper. The Taurus shadow is the guardian of value. Its purpose is to remind you of what truly matters. It forces you to confront your relationship with worth, with abundance, with safety, with trust, and with your own voice. The shadow does not exist to restrict you. It exists to illuminate the places where you have forgotten your power. In spiritual terms, the Taurus shadow is the part of you that tests your commitment to self-worth. It shows you where you undervalue yourself, where you settle for less, where you silence your truth to maintain peace, where you cling to situations that no longer serve you. It pushes you to confront your fears of instability, not to punish you, but to guide you toward true stability, the kind that comes from within rather than from circumstances outside your control. In psychological astrology, this shadow functions like a guardian of identity. It makes you face the limits you place on yourself. It reveals where you rely on comfort rather than courage. It exposes the beliefs that convince you to shrink instead of expand. The Taurus shadow invites you to reclaim your voice, to honor your body, to embrace the flow of life rather than resisting the inevitable changes that come with growth. From an evolutionary perspective, this shadow represents the soul's unfinished lessons. It reflects patterns that have carried over from previous lifetimes, patterns involving scarcity, possession, silence, or fear of losing what is precious. When these patterns arise, it is not a punishment. It is a chance to complete the karmic story, to rise beyond old cycles, to discover your inner strength. The spiritual purpose of the Taurus shadow is to guide you back to your own worth, to teach you that you are not defined by loss, that you are not bound to fear, and that your value is constant even when life shifts around you. Now let us speak about change, the kind of change that feels like a sacred invitation rather than a threat. Transforming the Taurus shadow does not happen through force. It happens through awareness, through gentle movement, through small acts of courage that slowly reshape your relationship with yourself. There are steps that lead toward freedom, and each step has the power to dissolve a layer of the shadow. The first step is movement. Taurus energy becomes stagnant when life becomes too predictable. You do not need dramatic change. You simply need motion. This could be a shift in routine, a walk in a new place, a decision to try something unfamiliar. Movement interrupts the shadow's grip. It reminds the body that change does not equal danger. It teaches the mind that flexibility can be safe. The second step is expression. Taurus often hides feelings in silence, storing them in the throat and chest. Speaking your truth becomes a sacred act of liberation. Whether you express your thoughts through voice, writing, art, or honest conversation, expression dissolves the shadow's weight. It teaches you that your voice is not a threat to stability, but a path to authenticity. The third step is release. This is one of the most challenging lessons for Taurus, because release feels like loss. But letting go does not erase what was valuable. Letting go makes space for what your soul needs now. Release may involve memories, beliefs, relationships, habits, or self-expectations. Releasing even one small thing breaks the illusion that permanence equals safety. The fourth step is forgiveness. Not forgiveness of others, but forgiveness of yourself. The Taurus shadow thrives on self-punishment. It convinces you that every mistake defines you. But when you choose self-compassion, the shadow weakens. Forgiveness is the act of reclaiming your worth, of acknowledging that you are allowed to learn, allowed to grow, allowed to begin again. The fifth step is trusting abundance. Taurus fears that once something is gone, it will never return. Transforming the shadow means trusting that the universe replenishes, that new opportunities rise, that new love arrives, that new chapters open. Trust teaches the heart to expand rather than tighten. It opens the door to the higher expression of Taurus, the expression rooted not in fear but in confidence. Before you leave this space, carry these words with you. You are not the mistakes you made. You are not the moments you hesitated. You are not the fears that once shaped your choices. You are the strength that survived. You are the truth that remained. You are the courage that rises again and again. The Taurus shadow tried to protect you, but the Taurus light will guide you. Trust this light. Believe in your worth. Stand in your presence. And remember this forever. Your value is eternal. Your spirit is unbreakable, and your journey is far from over. You are stepping into a new chapter, one written with awareness, with confidence, with a heart finally ready to receive everything it once feared to desire. If this message moved your spirit, make sure to explore the other videos on this channel. Each one carries a piece of wisdom meant to guide you even further on your journey.